And hello, everyone. This is ABC News Digital Special Report. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York, and you are looking at a live picture of the chimney above the Sistine Chapel. The smoke is coming out. A vote has been held for the day. We are just looking at some of the early seconds of that smoke billowing out there from the chimney as those 115 cardinals have cast their first ballot to elect the next pope. Rain in the Vatican tonight, along with some evening light, sometimes making it somewhat difficult to tell. But at that point, it does look like it could potentially be a safe call that it is black smoke. Of course, everyone hedging very carefully because oftentimes, because it is dark out, because it has been raining, it is difficult to tell exactly the color of the smoke. But it appears, though, unless it's going to lighten up in the next couple of seconds, it appears that it will be black smoke, for which indication that no pontiff has been declared. I want to bring in Father Matt Malone, who is joining us now to give us some insight on this. And Father Malone, you had, as so many people had decided earlier on today, that it wasn't likely that we were going to have a decision.
That's entirely correct. Yeah, I think the world would have been flabbergasted if that smoke were white. The truth of the matter is that the church was caught off guard by the Pope's announcement, and the church's challenges are great. And so the cardinals are going to take their time in making this decision and think carefully about it. Though they've spent some time together in general congregation over the last several days, and they've spent some time socializing and dining together, it still remains they need to think long and hard and prayerfully about this matter. And to decide it this quickly would have been really unusual.
And Father Malone, excuse me, you're the editor-in-chief of America Magazine. You're Skyping with us now from Rome. Explain to us then about how long have the cardinals been secreted away in the Sistine Chapel this afternoon?
They have been there since about 2.5 hours, if my math is correct.
I believe Conclave did start shortly after 1 o'clock. And explain a little bit now then, what is the process? That first round of ballots have been burned. The result, obviously, the black smoke coming from the chimney. What's next?
Well, they will go to dinner, and then they will have night prayers, and they will retire for the evening. Tomorrow, they will rise again at their hotel within the walls of the Vatican, and they will be transported back to the Sistine Chapel after morning prayers. And there is the possibility of there being 2 votes in the morning and the possibility of 2 more votes in the afternoon if none of those votes are conclusive. A total of 4 voting possibilities tomorrow and 2 opportunities to watch the chimney. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon.
Okay. Although the fact that there are 2 votes held in both time periods. If you can walk us through again the voting process for how exactly the ballots are distributed among the cardinals.
Well, part of what took them a bit of time this afternoon was they had to decide who was actually going to be the people, who among them was going to tabulate the votes and take a look at and to verify that all the votes have been taken. So the first thing that they do is each cardinal is given a ballot, and it says up at the top in Latin, I elect as Supreme Pontiff, and then there is a blank space. Each cardinal writes into that space their choice in a way that does not reveal their handwriting or their authorship. Then those ballots are carried up one by one. They are placed in an urn or a chalice in front of the fresco of Michelangelo's Last Judgment. Each cardinal makes an oath swearing that he has decided this in good conscience, knowing that he will be judged by the Lord for it, and places it in the container. And then the scrutineers, there are 3 of them, go through the ballots. One counts to make sure that everyone who has voted, that there aren't more ballots than there are voters. The second verifies the names, and the third just is a safety to make sure that the other 2 have acted correctly.
All right. And as we just saw from some of the live shots there from St. Peter's Square, some of the crowds that had gathered outside for that shot right there, for those first signs of smoke coming from the chimney, those crowds now dispersing into the evening rain. I want to bring in now Father John Guthrie from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops from Washington, D.C. And Father Guthrie, had that smoke not been black, had it been white, indicating that a new pope would have been elected, what would happen next?
Well, the next, they would have taken him, and this whole process, probably 45 minutes to an hour, and they would have taken the newly elected Pope into what they call the room of tears, because it's a very emotional time, taking this weight of the office, and change him into the white cassock, which is the sign of the Pope. And then after, bring him back into the Sistine Chapel, where all the cardinals would come to congratulate him and to ask his blessing, and then he would be taken out into the front of the church in the loggia there, the front, right over the main gate of St. Peter's, and the senior Cardinal Dean will come out and will announce Annuncio Gaudium Vobis, Gaudium Magnum. We have a Pope, Habemus Papam, and then they will name the name. And he will say that he has chosen whatever name as his papal name. So, but that takes a while, and it's interesting to note, Dan, that I noticed that smoke was very black. They've gotten very good at apparently showing that, but they've had some problems in the past because sometimes the smoke is white and it looks too dark. So Pope John Paul made a little change that if it is white smoke and they're kind of wondering, the bells of the basilica, all of them will start to ring. And so there's that very tense moment where you're looking up at the chimney, you're wondering, is that white or is that black? And then the cameras turn to the bells. And all of a sudden you see the first movement of the bell, and you know, indeed, that's white smoke. And in 45 minutes or so, the new Pope will be announced and to the world and to greet the world. So it's quite a dramatic thing, but I think that's a great change, so that there's no doubt if it's white smoke, you're going to hear the bells too.
Father Guthrie, I'm very happy that you pointed that out, because in the news business, oftentimes there is a race to be the first, and in this case, there is a race to be accurate, which means that we will sometimes have to hold off on making any kind of declaration until we hear those bells and until, in fact, that smoke is white. You mentioned a little bit about the process if, in fact, a new pontiff was elected today, and I wonder if you could explain a little bit about the significance of the Room of Tears that is just off the Sistine Chapel.
Well, in there are, it's not a large room, but he goes in there with a couple attendants, and he changes in there. And there are 3 different cassocks. Well, you can see there's actually more than 3. They usually have traditionally had 3, and they're different sizes. One for a smaller man. I guess there are 3 there. One for a larger man and one for a middle-sized man. So he's able to somewhat. And then the tailors will come in obviously later and actually tailor to exact his exact measurements. So, yeah, but it's just to get through that first announcement, and so that. But it's more importantly than what's in that room, and you can see how small that is, just how emotional it is in there. I can't imagine the emotion of finding out that you're the one. And it must be certainly surreal, and I hope somewhat prayerful. It's one of the reasons why every Mass, every Catholic around the world names him by name in the Eucharistic prayer, because you can't do this job without a tremendous amount of spiritual backing. And so that's what we pray for now for all of them, actually.
That's an interesting point, that room is so small and so intimate, and is probably the final moments before that man who will be elected the next Pope will step out onto the world stage and his life forever changed. Father Malone, I wanted to bring you in as the 115 cardinals are now making their way out of the Sistine Chapel, and they will be dining for the evening and then retiring to Santa Marta House. And talking a little bit about their schedule for tomorrow. They will be holding Mass at the Pauline Chapel. They then have a prayer service in the Sistine Chapel, and the voting will begin about 4:30 Eastern Time.
That's right, 4:30 a.m. Eastern.
4:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and say in both of those votes, the smoke is the same as what we saw this evening, black, and no one is elected. They would then retire for lunch and return back to the Sistine Chapel for the 2 afternoon votes. If that day were to continue on for tomorrow, and let's say those 4 votes still hold no conclusive Pope, how many days can that schedule carry on? Is there a limit?
It can go 3 days, and then they are required to take a break. And they hear from one of their senior members a reflection on, the nature of their task and a reminder about what it is that they ought to be considering in making their decision. And then they proceed if they don't reach a conclusion, they proceed for another 3 days, and then they would take yet another break for a day.
And are they now, they are completely closed off, essentially from the press, but among themselves, though, do they have conversations about this? Do they discuss the vote? What kind of dialogue goes back and forth between now, I wonder, and tomorrow when the next vote will be held?
Well, almost certainly they are talking amongst themselves about this and about the challenges that the church faces and the kind of man that they need at the top helping the church to meet those challenges. There are certain protocols around this event, and they are rather strict, even when you're not in the Sistine Chapel. So, for instance, one does not go around proposing oneself, throwing one's own hat into the ring, as it were. It would be rare that you would speak directly to a man you were considering voting for. You would probably speak to his friends and his colleagues first. And ascertain, this is what I'm thinking. Might this be a good fit? Could this possibly work? It's very indirect. And again, it's a custom that indirectness is a custom that has developed over centuries as a means of, keeping human nature in check and making sure that that there's nothing there that would encourage anyone's ambition.
We want to welcome anyone who is just now joining us. You're watching an ABC News digital special report, live coverage of the Papal Conclave. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York. And in Rome, the Roman Catholic cardinals have voted, but they have not elected a new pope. The black smoke from the Sistine Chapel chimney flew a little less than 15 minutes ago, capping off a long, historic day. The cardinals will now be heading to their quarter at the Santa Marta house. And Father Guthrie, as they're now going to be reflecting on today's activities, do you find that this process is a unifying event for the Catholic Church, or as in the past 10 days, as so many issues that the Catholic Church is facing have been brought up, can it somewhat raise those issues to a higher level that could potentially be divisive?
Well, it certainly could be divisive. I think that again is why it's so important to consider what the Dean, Cardinal Sodano, said at his homily this morning in St. Peter's to the cardinals. He said that this is to be a unifying moment, certainly for the cardinals, but I think for the church as well. It doesn't help to have, the church has always faced struggles. And if those struggles, they need to be faced, and faced in a healthy way. So I think that all of us are praying that this will be a moment of great unity for the church, and that it will be a time where we can move forward with an evangelization that is able to proclaim not ourselves, but Jesus Christ. I think it's important for us to remember why the church is. It's not about a man, it's not about any of us in the end, it's about the Lord using the instrument of the church to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ. So anything that distracts us from that goal needs to be dealt with so that we can get on to the business of what we're about. And I think that that's what we're all praying for in the church, that whoever is chosen might lead us in that direction, certainly dealing with some of the struggles that the church has, but also to do it in a way that allows us to move forward and keep our eye on the ball, so to speak.
Father Malone, your thoughts from Rome?
No, I would agree with that. I think we want to talk about this like it is an election, like any old election in a democracy. But first of all, the church isn't a democracy, strictly speaking. And we have to remember that the cardinals who are participating in this are not really conceiving of their work as engaging in an election. They think of it as engaging in a liturgy, and they think of their work as an act of prayer. And so that's why it can appear strange to the outside world that is used to watching a very different kind of election. And so I would agree with Father Guthrie that it's important to remember that this is a unique kind of experience, and it takes as its point of reference its faith in the Lord.
Father Malone Skyping for us from Rome, and Father Guthrie in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, thank you both for your time this afternoon. And the wait will now go into a second day. Voting for a new pope will continue tomorrow in the Vatican, and that is good news for a Catholic organization that has set up this. It is popealarm.com. The site takes your information. It promises e-notification, a text, a tweet, an email, however you choose when a new pope is selected. By yesterday, that service had become a little too popular, in fact, and had stopped taking clients. So the overwhelming excitement there. Of course, ABC News has no such limitations. Our whole team is watching that chimney for signs of white smoke, so keep an eye on abcnews.com, on your computer, on your smartphone, on your tablet, Twitter, and Facebook as well. We always have room and welcome you. So, from all of us here at ABC News, have a good afternoon.